don't get quite as short as they do over in Northern Europe. So I gotta appreciate the sunshine, and I don't think I didn't appreciate it enough until I had a couple trips over to Denmark in December, and being there on, winter solstice. You're just kind of like, how can you do this year after year? And like, I can't do it for more than 10 days. I come over, get my week in the office, like have a solid trip, and I'm like, I need to see the daylight. You walk into the office, it's dark. You're walking out of the office, it's dark. You're like, what happened?
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's my biggest hatred of living in Northern Europe. And like I'm in London, which is like covered with noise pollution and light pollution all the time. Like, it's dark outside, but it's not that dark really. I can't say it's pitch black. I'm gonna say it now. I've started recording. I've got Paul on the other side, who works for a really, really, really cool company, which is on his jumper as well, which I've already seen. If you don't know CeramicSpeed I don't know who you are, because CeramicSpeed are probably like, I don't know, like it's one of those brands that anyone that's into geeky bike stuff knows, I think. And even people that aren't into geeky bike stuff sort of know.
Yep. Yeah. Even maybe the shops that don't do, the geeky Gucci fun stuff, or riders, I'll still be at events, and people are like, I know this brand, and why has changed. I've had it to where you guys make the little expensive stuff, or you make the big jockey wheels, or we make the chainless bike. So kind of each milestone of recognition changes what the new person may be aware of. But I think the best way to put it, CeramicSpeed was the first to bring hybrid ceramic bearings into the sports industry. So we set our benchmark before people were really geeking out on those little details. So, looking at not, what can we do today, but, what's the cool thing tomorrow to try to be on that front edge. So CeramicSpeed is an awesome company to have been a part of with all of this growth, seeing these different milestones of what we do, and what people who don't intricately know what we do understand of the brand.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's like, I can quite happily say that my probably favorite part of cycling, I do like loads of long distance races and all that kind of thing, but I definitely would say my head is definitely that of a time trialist, like 100%. Time trialing in the UK has got such a massive culture and history, and we have a separate cycling governing body for time trialing, separate from British Cycling. We have our own thing, which is called CTT, which governs time trials in the UK. And admittedly, it's very old fashioned. Like, you can pay for things via check, which that's old fashioned as far as I'm concerned. I don't even have a checkbook, so I'm kind of screwed on some of those race entries. But for me, like, time trialing is one of those things, and I guess like triathlon as well, very much is like you're hunting for these marginal gains, and it could be the tiniest thing which can give you half a watt. But like in a 10-mile time trial, half a watt is like the difference between first and second place. It literally is. And
over time you get that average. You become intricately aware of your effort versus your output. How much are you putting into the bike, and what's that result? Whereas there's so many wild cards and, group racing, criterium racing, road racing, all of that there's the drafting and the attacking and when do you go. You set all of that in an individual event such as a time trial, or like you mentioned, triathlon, that, you have a start and an end, and you need to accomplish it as efficient as possible. As fast as possible would be great, but if you're blown up for the run, or you blew yourself up in the last 2 miles were absolutely slow, or a couple K were absolutely slow, it's not about just being as fast as you can. You want to be as fast as you can. You want to be as efficient as you can in accomplishing that. So that's the microscope that we put on the bike of what's our focus. And we come after the other great upgrades. When aerodynamics were just going crazy in the 90s and 2000s, and everyone's talking about, gotta have carbon wheels and aero this and aero that, and my zipper and my water bottle and my helmet. We're shaving everything we can off the aero side. And then it's like, well, let's take a look at the derailleur that hasn't had a major revision since Paul de Vie came up with the original 2 pulley wheel designed to have multi-gear shifting without having to actually use your hands to move the chain.
Yeah.
So it's we get so focused in different areas. Sometimes you just got to look at somewhere else and go, what can we do?
Yeah, it's very true. It's like you look at, I mean, for me, a big part of it is just you look at the efficiency of ceramic bearings, but also the next part is, and I've spoken a long time with a guy who's an aero expert here in the UK, who runs a company called Aero Coach. And I've like prime geeky chats with him like regularly because I like that. And we talked a lot about chain line efficiency and the importance of that for TTs. And so my TT bike, which is a Cervélo P series, but it is like tricked out to the max, oversized pulley wheels, ceramic bearing bottom bracket, titanium extensions that are custom molded to my position, because I ride quite a unique position I ride with a really high hand position, and it's unique to me because I'm quite comfortable in that position for 24 hours. Like not many people can sustain that comfortably for 24 hours, but like I've got like custom made elbow pads that have got like really high sided, but they've also got a back on them, so you like slump into them and you can drop down even more. But like as I was saying, like chain line efficiency, so I run massive chain rings on the front, pretty large cassette on the back, oversized system, because it just, in my head, and Zav from Aerocoach is in the same mindset as me, if you run all these larger options on the bike, you're forcing less kinks, less extreme kinks in the chain, therefore it's more efficient.
Yep. It's the original concept with the oversized. It's not entirely unique. It has been considered before, by those chainring sizes. We've seen it on the big scale with some of the great TT riders out there pushing the really big, front ring. They're not putting that down into 11 or, God forbid, the 10 now with some of these systems that, you want that chain line and you want it to have to articulate as little as possible. And we get people like, oh, aren't these bigger rings and bigger chains and all that going to be more, more weight? In the grand scheme of things, that little bit of weight versus every chain link articulation of every pedal stroke, 116, 14 links, all going around at 95 RPMs, you're 20,000 plus articulations a minute. That's a lot of little movement. And you say it's a tiny bit, but a tiny bit times 20,000 is 20,000 times bigger than a tiny bit that it was. It multiplies real quick, and that's where we can see a chain can consume 6, 7, 10 plus watts. A pulley system can consume more than 5 watts, 6 watts. It's all these little bits that each step should be considered, should be addressed. We QC an entire bike, we check each piece as we put it together. Take that same care to the setup for what your goal is. So if your goal is to get power out of your shoes and to the tires, you got to have the system in between as effective as possible.
Yeah, and it's all about like cleanliness of it all, keeping it uncontaminated, keeping it, I have this thing like I would never race on race day. I'd never ride or train on the wheels that I'd race on. Just wouldn't do it. I'd ride something that I feel would feel similar because, like a disc wheel and a deep section front does noticeably change the feel of the bike, but I wouldn't continue. I just like have this concern of like wearing things out, which I think anyone would do. And you want things to be as efficient and to work as nicely as possible. Basically, it just, to me, it was like no brainer. Second set of wheels, because I still ride a deep section wheel, and like with the P series TT bike, it's disc brake, so it doesn't really matter that much. Like it doesn't. You can ride. I don't know. I'm a big believer in disc brakes and the ability to have a set of wheels that you can just use for everything and anything. Like disc brakes, for me, I just think it's the future. Like, I don't know why I know there's loads of people like, oh, it doesn't look as nice, but it freaking stops.
Cycling is so traditional. And so many things that have carried over, just out of sheer stubbornness that this is how it's been done. These are how we go about it. And I think that's a big piece of rim brake and hashtag saves the rim brake. And it's like, would there have been hashtag save the cassette 30 years ago if we were, hashtagging back then?
Yeah.
When something new comes along, just because it's different, oh man, my CD scratches easier than my cassette would. It's like, but we take all the other good because there are so many other good pieces. You're taking out the wear item on a rim. I mean, those of us that remember the wear marks on rims, to where when that dot disappeared or that marking, that was your indicator your rim was worn out. Like now it's just a rotor. Oh, your rotor's too thin. Slap a new one in there. You chewed it up in a nasty race. You didn't ruin your rim. You just slap a new rotor or a new brake pad. So it's, you got to get past the tradition. You got to get past the aesthetic, the compatibility, I don't know how to work on it. All these little things. We can't just plant ourselves where we're at. You have to continue as technology does. March things forward.
Do you think that? The big argument as well for obviously disc brake, the stopping's incredible. Now as well, I think, as we've seen some of the newer bikes that are coming out, like this year, I'd say specifically, there is definitely people are taking into consideration how to cover up the brake caliper. So therefore, you're making something that is going to be more aerodynamic. You're not having the actual front brake caliper of a rim brake bike. That is quite an object that effectively is going to be a blocker. It's going to cause turbulence. It's going to be something that causes some drag. You take that away, you can create so much more of a streamlined front end to a bike. And as I say, many, many brands now are looking at ways to hide the caliper into the fork, the caliper into the fork somewhat. I'm pretty sure Scott might have done it on the new Plasma. I'm pretty sure there's loads of brands that have done it. Probably Orbea have done it, I think. But it's no slower. It's no slower at all. If anything, now I think we're really seeing that it is going to start testing faster for so many bikes now. It really is. And fundamentally, for me, before I had the Cervélo, I had a Giant Trinity, which is a great TT bike, fantastic TT bike. Bang for your buck, probably one of the best that you could buy. It's great value for money for what it is. The brakes on it are terrible. They're shockingly bad. And for me, in the UK, time trials are basically start here, ride to a roundabout, go round the roundabout, go back to where you finish. That's just standard UK TT. I found from having gone from the Giant Trinity to the Cervélo, which is disc brake, that I can start braking so much later when I come up to that roundabout. The actual braking time is so much shorter. I'm not scrubbing off speed early. And so the times are faster. Take away the fit or the type of the bike or the wheel sets or whatever it is, just that simple thing of being able to stop. I'm doing faster TTs. It's really, really simple to me. Reduce something that causes you to be scrubbing off so much speed a lot. Get rid of it, and you're going to go faster.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and one of the things I've always really liked about CeramicSpeed is kind of the openness and honesty of just going, this is the data, this is what we tested, and also, which is super useful for anyone that wants to see it online. It's all available online. You can pretty much you literally just search for it. Is it Friction Facts, isn't it?
So the Friction Facts domain has gone away now. So we've fully brought everything on under the Why CeramicSpeed header. CeramicSpeed.com, you just sport. We also have an industry and a motorsport division, but sport for bicycles right at the top. Why CeramicSpeed right there. We have pretty much all of the unedited Friction Facts articles still live and accessible. Go in and see chain testing and chain alignment and pulley wheel size, bearing testing, all the things that Jason Smith of Friction Facts tested and pioneered and first started putting a critical eye on. That drives what we do. It's when we develop something new, the test process is entirely a part of that as we go through. What's the benchmark? What are we comparing against? What's our mark to increase the efficiency or increase the value here? And we keep going through iterations until we meet that mark that we're targeting, that we're after, that we want to exceed or that we want to surpass. So having that in-house is immensely valuable to us to be able to bring a product along the development process with full understanding of it and know not being blind to a certain metric because we test them. We want to know that information and not just, promote, it felt great, or it sounds so quiet, or, I think it's fast, it's smooth, right? Like, we're measuring hundredth of a watt. So when we think it's fast, we're pretty darn confident we can look exactly at it and give a comparative, it is fast.
It's like, it's fascinating. I just find it really fascinating. I love this level of refinery geekiness. I love it. And I just think, like, I think you're noticing I've definitely noticed in the UK, more and more people are going, like, not just for time trialing, road bikes, whatever it is, you're seeing oversized systems so much more now in people's, like, Sunday best bike, I'll call it, which I'm pretty sure is what your bike is in the background. Sunday best?
Sunday best. It's my son's Sunday best. He was the last one on the Zwift setup just yesterday. So he's on the indoor trainer. The office does double duty, gets on Zwift here. So yeah, no, he's peeking in behind me there at the bike. But no, I hear you. Yeah, I mean, the Sunday best, everyone wants to get the most out of the ride. Like, whether it's just scenic or for the stress relief, get out and get a workout, you still, we have nice bikes that function and perform when you've become a level of a cyclist that you want it to work well. You want it to not be what disrupts your ride. You don't want to be complaining about something not working. So, whether it's just the Sunday best or even a rider's only bike, you just ask yourself, what metrics are you after? What are you after for your riding? For some, it's the big spoiler on the back of the car. There's some that just like the bike to look like they did the aftermarket mods. And that's a segment. It's a massive segment in automotive. For, again, talking about traditional list of cycling, our industry kind of doesn't really like those aftermarket mods that look out of line, whether it's something weird at the hoods or a odd, saddle shape. We are incredibly stubborn to these changes. At first, with the size of a Dura-Ace 9000 pulley cage versus an oversized, it was stark, and there was definitely a lot of people who are like, I'm going to ride Dura-Ace, but that looks weird. Well, modern cages have gotten larger, and just the, seeing people more and more out there riding it, the look is fading away as being something that's just starkly weird or odd to, okay, that's a modified pulley system to reduce the drag through the system. So yeah, looking at these details, we talked at the beginning, time trials, you're intricately aware of your effort, but I think people do overlook the fact that if you're pedaling along in a Peloton, well, you're in the Peloton to save drag. You don't want to be out there in the wind, or at least not in the wind all the time. So you're in there and you're still pedaling along and you're following the guy in front of you. But doesn't it make sense that you could still reduce the mechanical drag that you experience? You've purposely made the choice to reduce the aero drag by sitting in. Well, if you're still putting out watts to stay along, it's not free to sit in a Peloton. There's still watts in your drivetrain being consumed. Whether you're in the front or the back of the Peloton, if you're pushing the pedals, your drivetrain takes watts. So, whether you are a time trialist or a Sunday best rider that wants to go ride with a lively group and do hill repeats or wherever, you can still benefit whether you're the guy on the nose of the group or in the pack. You're putting power into the pedals. There's a benefit to be gained. It's why we have the nicer shifting, and we get aerodynamics even for the guys that are sitting in the Peloton. They still want those aero gains. So we challenge those assertions of what you're going to look at, what you want, what you're after, what your Sunday best should be equipped with. And yes, for our viewers at home, he does have CeramicSpeed pulleys.
If he didn't, I mean, come on. It'd be really, really disappointing if you didn't, eh?
It was when I told my wife I needed to buy him different cranks so that way he could set up a bottom bracket that she looked at me a little funny.
One of the other, the things that I'd say I've been a big admirer of what CeramicSpeed have done for I don't even know how many years now. It's a long time. And one of the things I've also really, really loved is the addition of the limited edition options. So
cool. Glad to hear it's well received. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it was the one that I remember very well was the pink Giro ones. I just thought it looked great. It's that simple. It just looked really, really cool. And it's nice to see you know, these kind of options appearing now, because I think, you know, we're finding that current cyclists, I think, yes, cyclists as general are very particular, you know, the whole like freaking rules of cycling, which I personally think is bullshit. I do. I just think like there shouldn't be any rules. Just go out and ride what you want, ride how you want, do what you want at the end of the day. But cyclists are as you say, are notoriously particular about certain things and have an opinion about everything. 100%.
That's true.
Everyone loves, like, it's, for example, you got the Campag lovers, the Shimano lovers, the SRAM lovers. I know where I sit, and it's purely because of I'm a Shimano lover. Like, it just fucking works. It just works. That's it. That's why I love it. It just works. But then, you know, I understand the appeal of Campag. It's very beautiful looking. Never really got on with SRAM, so I can't really comment much on it. But like, you know, anyway, cyclists are very particular. But also one of the things that I think is really noticeable as well, that cyclists don't want to go for a ride and ride next to someone who's got exactly the same setup as them. So things like the limited edition options were a really nice, tiny tweak to the system to what most people normally saw. And there was like, I remember there was the series on Zwift where you basically could do, what was it? TT road and mountain bike, I think it was.
Yep. Yeah, certain distance on each of the key disciplines. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. And you got your little pulley wheel appear on your bike on Zwift, and you went into a draw, didn't you, to win a limited edition one as well. And like all of those kind of things are really, really nice. It's just nice to see the ability to see something slightly different from what everyone else is offering right now. As you say, CeramicSpeed probably, well, they are in fact the first brand, definitely that I was ever aware of, doing this kind of thing in cycling. It feels like CeramicSpeed's been doing it a hell of a long time.
Yeah, we are closing 16 years since we originally founded in 2004. That was actually a year after our first product showed up in the Tour de France. So our founder, Jacob Sismadia, actually, it wasn't even cycling related when he began this journey of tinkering with bearings. It was inline skates. He was looking to best the existing world record furthest distance skated in 24 hours. He had made some attempts. He briefly held the record just under 500 kilometers, but there was this kind of, theoretical ceiling that an individual could not go more than 500 kilometers on a pair of inline skates in 24 hours.
500K on inline skates? Jesus.
in under 24 hours. So that was the theoretical limit. This is the late 90s that they, they kept slimming away. It's kind of like the hour record where you kept getting close and, it's not making big gains, but then somebody does something and they just come back and crush it. That was JC, Jakob Sismadia, pre-CeramicSpeed, when he hand-built hybrid ceramic bearings for each of the wheels in his skates. It's 2 bearings per wheel. I believe it was a 5-wheel setup, so that's 10 bearings on each skate. So 20 bearings he had built there, that every one of those, the goal is actually to keep the wheel spinning when the skate comes off the ground. Mm-hmm. So you're putting all this forward movement, you push yourself forward, but there's a little bit of added friction if the wheels stop and have to restart. So if you keep the wheels going, every time you push off, you save that little bit of restart momentum. You get to just hit the ground and push right into it. He went 505 kilometers that next attempt. And that was the spark that said, this works. He went like 497, I believe it was, and then it was 505. It was a fairly large jump, and he did crest the 500 kilometer mark. He briefly held the record. All records since then have been set with hybrid ceramic bearings. But that's what gave the spark. So there's something here. That was the proof in the pudding for him. And being Scandinavian, being Danish, having some ties into the cycling industry, it started growing as, well, what about this? There's all these bearings on bikes. You're riding a lot faster, a lot farther than an average inline skater may. So is there gains to be had here? And it was Bjarne Riis, 2002, 2003 Tour de France's Team CSC back in the day. Our founder was in the truck there building the bearings for the team riders throughout the tour. He took his summer holiday to spend in France doing that because he believed that this will work for you guys. And Bjarne Riis was like, that's we need that little extra. What can be done? Whether it's sponsored or not, We continually have product on the podiums of all the Grand Tours and all the big World Tour races, whether it's, sponsor teams or teams that we're selling to privately that are, running it not as a sponsored item. It continues to show that from before we were founded as a company through now, riders at the highest level see these benefits and use them. And it's now been a 16-year journey. I've been here going on 5.5 years now with the CeramicSpeed in North America of telling that story and getting people to think about their bearings kind of in the way that we used to when it was all cup and cone. Bearings were something that a skilled craftsman would put together to give you something that really performed. Your generic cup and cone versus your guy that knows what he's doing, there were value differences. But we've kind of reduced it all to just sealed bearings in the last 20 years. It was easier to manufacture. There was nice consistency. Somebody didn't have to sit there and place all the balls in the cup and cone. You just press that bearing in. So that convenience kind of replaced that artisanal craftsmanship that went along with building a bike. And we want to say, hey, you can still look at that level of quality. It's not just a steel sealed bearing. You can still get varying quality metrics out of there. And it's not always just efficiency. In the lab, the balls, whether the material is steel or ceramic, they can be super round, they can be super smooth, they can spin with very low drag. The question becomes what happens in 3, 6, or 9 months down the road with some contamination, use, and wear. That's a difference of material can hold up differently. So it's always getting the whole picture. We put the warranty on the front of the package, not the watt savings. We lead off with this is a durable product we expect to last. I can say that, wiped a little sweat off the brow when I surpassed our warranty life of the product through my tenure with CeramicSpeed. It's like, cool, what I'm selling is still working in the market. That's the proof for me now firsthand. So I'm good and happy with that. But we really do believe, the stuff can last, and it's like a performance automobile. Put in quality effort to it, take care of it, it will treat you well.
It's that whole buy cheap, buy twice, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's something that I won't. All of my bikes, like the lowest spec equipment I will use is Ultegra, because the difference really between Ultegra and Dura-Ace is weight, quite frankly. And it's not that I don't think the lower spec group sets are bad or anything. It's just that I always know that I'm getting something that is at a standard which is like pretty much the ability that you would class as pro quality. And I do between 20 and 30,000 kilometers a year, and so I need stuff that's going to last and be durable and be strong and be structured and just work without having to think about it. And then the other thing for me is I always ride DI2, always, because it's that simple thing of like, boop, changes gear, boop, changes gear again, or and it's faultless. The shifting is faultless, whatever you do. But the main reason for me is I actually have quite bad nerve damage in one of my hands. So over a large period of time, I get really bad fatigue in my hands, and like a mechanical group set, that motion, like when you're going to press in the shifters, I can't do it. It's very painful. So DI2, boop, little tap, perfect. So when you talk about efficiency, quality and longevity, I completely get it. But one of the things that's been quite cool to see as well as CeramicSpeed is venturing into, it's now being seen on cyclocross, mountain biking. I remember when with Trinity Racing with Tom Pidcock was been seen, riding around on CeramicSpeed as well. And I went out to go and watch Tom and Cam, who's in Trinity as well, go and race in Hoogerheide last year. Great, really good race. I think that way. Yeah, no, that I don't think. I know Van der Poel won it because Van der Poel. But Van Aert was racing. I think Pidcock came third or fourth. He did really, really well in the seniors, and Cam came seventh, I want to say. But it was like one of those things going, okay, this is cool to see. CeramicSpeed is now appearing in the off-road scene, which is that vouch for it works. It still works off-road.
And it's been a strategic, almost sounds more like it was, this marketing, like, oh, we gotta go over there and show it for this reason. But where our Danish headquarters is northwestern Denmark, Holstebro. 2 hours north of where Lego is founded, headquartered, 4 or 5 hour train ride from Copenhagen. It's very much farmland-ish area. It's quite a curious part of the country because it's also close to where Bang & Olufsen was originally founded, which was just to the north, a little bit closer to the coast there. But then you're just kind of in this lovely farmland. There's a lot of beautiful forests. We end up riding through the forest. Gravel dirt road is going very, very popular now in Denmark, to where we ride more off-road than even just road when we're over. Like when we come over to have meetings and such, and those at HQ that ride regularly, to where, it's always kind of been a part of the internal of CeramicSpeed, that we're not just skinny tire roadies. We have that DNA, we have a racing culture internally of all tire types, but the mix of what everyone rides, for us, it was a no-brainer to use the products. The question was telling that story and giving the confidence to those riders, not just, well, I'm using this roadie race thing on my off-road bike, but I'm using a product that was made for this bike. So it's how do we approach that to say, we use these internally, we understand how they age. Denmark's actually a fantastic climate for testing stuff because it's a peninsula. It's probably similar to the UK, lots of moisture, lots of poor conditions to test the durability of products. So if people say, oh yeah, ceramic bearings, it's sunshine and clean days only, I'm like, and we would ride these all of like 4 days where we make them if we followed that rule. But no, we ride them all the time. Or we have a heated jet wash station for after the rides when the bikes are just absolutely disgusting. Clean it off, wipe it off, dry it up, put a new coating of UFO drip on the chain, whatnot, and you're ready to go. So we believe in the product in these conditions, and it's just getting people again to think about what are they looking for from the product, and then they take care of it, and they'll take care of them.
So that's, I know you mentioned it loosely then, or very, very, I guess say subtly, UFO drip.
Yep.
That's all been updated, hasn't it?
Yeah, we did. Well, here, I just got to put this project to bed. I'm so excited. We've updated. So 3 years ago, we came out with our lovely guy here, our first version, the world's fastest bottle drip lubricant, as it was coined internally. We were testing, going crazy. We overlooked one metric, you could say, and that was the logistical transport of it. We achieved the formula that was super fast and worked really well, but it was slightly limited on temperature application. You needed it to be warm because of the amount of wax that was in there. You get below 10 C, 50 Fahrenheit or so, it got real thick. It was just how much wax was in the container. But the other thing with that was it was flammable. So shipping was quite a hassle. You couldn't check it in an airline. You weren't supposed to put it in your luggage or anything like that. So when we launched it, we very quickly knew we had a couple of things that we wanted to address. So it has been almost exactly 3 years, I think 3 years and a month, since we shipped the first UFO drip formula. And yeah, just this past week, there we go, UFO drip, the new formula, updated the bottle, bring it in line to look kind of the current image of the brand, but totally new formula. It's still based off of our UFO wax formula, but there's no flammable base. It's not hazardous. It's non-toxic, biodegradable. So really focused on kind of cleaning up the product, you could say, and it got faster. It lasts longer per coating, and we made it less expensive.
Yeah, so, I mean, the less expensive bit is probably the bit that will appeal to 90% of people, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And that was one, it was a lot of discussions with the first one and a lot of discussions on the second one, because you set the bar really high. We believe in the value of the product, and when we released it, how fast it was, how you could apply it, all the metrics we really believed in. But when you set the bar that high, if anything goes awry, you're really looked at critically. So it's hard to apply below 50 Fahrenheit, 10 Celsius. That's it's a check against it because it's an expensive product. It's flammable, so it's a really hard to ship and order it online. It costs a lot to ship. These again become challenges. So we went through. We even redid the packaging. It had a fancy kind of Apple-like sliding 2-part box. We said, let's simplify it. Let's get to the root of what we want to deliver to our customer. What do we want as riders? we loved the experience of the first packaging in the box, and we were, over the moon with it because it did everything we asked of it. And then it's like, well, we need to also consider what the customer's going to ask of it beyond just a fast bottle product. So, yeah, 3 years in the making, absolutely a lot of fun to address these challenges and find that resolution. We took advantage. We have 2 labs. We have the Friction Facts lab that's part of our US office now, as well as a lab that's in our Danish office. Same equipment across the pond each side, so that way we can blind test formulas. They can do a test. They can send over a bottle and a chain. We can do a test and make sure that we have this consistency, that we're going to put something out that, as you said earlier, the transparency and data, it's still critical to us, because we want people, and it's very Danish, they're very truthful, very honest. When you say something, that's what it is. And we don't want to take advantage of it. We want to be, clear and direct, and we are bold. We do look to break records and to move things forward, but we want to make sure that people can trust when we put something out there. We have the data to back it up. We are a company from the CEO down. There's a lot of cyclists with different levels of racing background or current racing, and we use these products, and we want other racers to see the value in them and use them. So we try to get that whole story out there for everyone. But yeah, incredibly excited for the new UFO drip. Get out there and try it out, and everyone see what you think.
It's nice. When I saw it was launched, like my background's actually architecture originally, but I do a lot of graphic design and branding work. And I saw the packaging and I was like, that's nice. That was my first thought. I was like, that's really slick. It's just nice and clean, simple, clean, no nonsense. And I really, really like that. One thing I am obviously going to have to bring up is that bike. I don't have to say anything else, do I? You know exactly what bike I mean. The bike. Or, in fact, there's 2, is there, that I know of?
Well, so I jump forward, presume we're talking driven here, which at this point, there have been 4 shown to the public, and 2 that, are more internal, test mules, you could say. So there's been 6 total of these in existence around the world originally. So let's see, we're here in 2020, so 2019. I think back in the calendar here, I think it was 2018, we did the first driven bike introduction at Eurobike. And to be honest, it even blew away our expectations. We were excited about it. We thought it was cool, but it was this pie in the sky thing. So we can go back even 12 months prior to the introduction of Driven at Eurobike 2018, I believe it was. Going back before that, it was actually part of a Colorado University, so U.S. office here in Boulder, Colorado. In Boulder, Colorado is CU, Colorado University, and they have a really strong engineering program. And every year they have their senior engineering challenge. So all the students are in teams, and many brands, aerospace engineering, all sorts of different brands, automotive come in and basically present a challenge that they want some fresh eyes on. Give these students something. They're not bogged down in the history of whatever they're doing, so they can maybe have a unique approach to it. And we, basically were like, here's the benchmark. This is as fast as we can make a pedal-driven bicycle. Don't have to use a chain, don't have to use a traditional orientation. It was, can you get power from pedals to a wheel more efficiently? And it was less than 12 months from that challenge to showing that first bike had driven to show what they came up with, and that had been validated on paper through the testing that it is more efficient than the traditional geared drivetrains that we're working with. And a lot of that can be attributed to just getting rid of the chain. All those links that are going to articulate the pulleys, the chain line, as we talked about, all of that is kind of our last big hurdle. We keep winding down, dwindling down all the other details as best we can, but that chain is the piece. And then, so we launched that. It was on a bike that, would probably be very familiar to you, and very many, people were very familiar with that first all black platform there, with those beautiful lightweight wheels and everything built up on there. But it was a single speed orientation, and it was a true concept. That bike wasn't designed to carry a load or be ridden. We had another one that was, carrying the load. But after that, everyone was like, okay, how does it shift? It's never going to shift. There's a whole bunch of YouTube videos out there that tell us how it's not going to work. We don't worry about that. We find solutions. We worked on it. So we went back, and so we presented it the next year at CU grads. this was a hit. It was people liked it. The shifting, this is the next crux of it, and that's what we showed the next year, 12 months later, then coming in 2019 at Driven. I might be off by a year, it's probably a year earlier, 2017, 2018. 2020 just hasn't happened. My brain's not processing. It's been 12 months. But we came back 12 months later to Eurobike with a shiftable Driven setup that used internal battery and mechanism in the drive shaft, a 2-part step system to shift up and down the cassette. Still early prototype, we're still less than 24 months from the original design challenge of what's faster than today. 12 months figured out the Driven system as a single speed. 12 months later, we put into shifting mechanism with a wireless remote shifter. We have it ridden on the velodrome carrying load, and we also did 2 other versions. One we did with a specialized hinge, and actually got time in the wind tunnel to compare it versus a traditional drivetrain. And again, you talked about the brakes. It's a lot of wind noise. Getting rid of the whole derailleur system entirely, the whole derailleur, flattening it, made a notable impact. So there's an aero benefit to this. And then we also went over and we did a Canyon Lux, a full suspension driven platform that had a telescoping drive shaft to it, to where as you went through the suspension, it would automatically keep it in line where it needed to be. So we see these concepts, we see these, and we continue to push and drive forward. Driven's not dead, it's still internally under development. We have the big milestones, the big things to talk about. That's been the previous Eurobike events where we really released, here's these new bikes. Now it's time for the lab to close the doors again and just flush through all of those little things, all the ways that people like, it's not going to work, it's not going to do this, it's not going to do this. That's part of the product cycle and the product life. There may be something at some point that is some giant red flag, but so far to this date, it hasn't arisen yet. We've been able to solve and overcome. We got the shifting over under load. We've got the power transfer. We have the different setups. People like, it's going to be this sharp, crazy flattened cassette meat grinder around the rear wheel. The number one fear of change in cycling seems to be their bike eating them. Disc brakes are going to kill us all, and this cassette's going to crush us. But so we did an aero cover, a 2-part magnet snap-on aero cover, improve the aerodynamics, and then protects it against exposure, and it also keeps it cleaner. Jason Smith has been highly involved in this. It's one of his new projects since joining CeramicSpeed, as he's been leading this new technology kind of adventures to get after. And he envisions it as you're doing a cyclocross race and you don't have to stop for a bike change. Your drivetrain is completely covered and sealed. Not only is it highly efficient, it's not getting mucked up with crud that makes it less efficient, and you can just blow by the pit and keep going. He sees so many different attributes and things that can be solved by moving away from the drivetrain that we've all known and loved for 100 years. And yes, I will address the elephant. We did not create the shaft drive. We're not claiming to create the shaft drive. It's my number one favorite, least favorite, meme that pops up on the lovely social medias. Picture Driven next to an old steel bike from 100 years ago, and they're like, oh look, what's old is new. I'm like, it is very true. Like we found these old concepts and we flushed them out to see, can it be improved? Shafts are used in a lot of applications for transmission drive. It's just, let's focus on how the application is. What can we do to make it as optimal as possible, So, and we understand bearings. We have an industrial side that does everything from satellite bearings to wind turbine bearings. So we know how they can carry loads that bikes aren't used to. We have an understanding of these different ways that the systems can work together, and we can leverage that to try to, deliver the best cool new thing that we can.
It's cool because, like, I was talking to a chap named Phil Spearman, who is like one of the very, 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 very clever people at Cervélo. I say very a lot because he is very clever, and he's been involved with the brand for a very long time as well. Lots of berries there. And he always refers to this thing about a bike hasn't changed since the 1970s. And he's like, probably even longer than that, really, like a traditional road bike. And hearing brands that are trying to do things about changing that mentality, to me, is one, positive, two, exciting. Where I reference it with Cervélo is when the Cervélo S5 came out, the current generation one with the split handlebars, and everyone was like, what the fuck is that? It literally, everyone was like, what the hell is it? Then when the CeramicSpeed bike came out, same thing. Everyone was like, what the fuck is that? And like the fact that it's causing a discussion point is brilliant, because as we've sort of alluded to quite a lot, cycling is very traditional, very old school mentality. Like, I mean, come on, like there's rules about freaking sock length. Yeah. Who gives a monkey's ass about sock length? Just wear whatever you got that's clean and dry. That's all I think. You know, there's so many like strange sort of finicky rules in cycling, and it bugs me a lot because, as I said earlier, it's just go out and ride and enjoy it. It's most of the reason why most people cycle is because at some point as a kid they went out for a ride and loved it, and you have that association to that pleasure and enjoyment, which you can still get as an adult, no matter whether you're riding a bike that costs you 50 quid or you're riding a bike that costs you, 10, 20 grand. Like the variation in price doesn't matter. There's a very much an emotive thing with riding that, I think so many people can relate to 100%. It's just like, for me, like I do train, but also I really enjoy just going for a bike ride and exploring. Like, I think there's something really nice about the fact you drive a car and you can get to A to B really, really quickly. It's fast. Yeah. You absorb nothing. You're in a box. You don't get the smells, you don't get the winds, the elements, rain, whatever it is. You don't get it. You're just in a concealed box. But then on the flip side, you go walking and you absorb so much, but you're walking slowly. So you don't actually see it a lot. So you might absorb tons, but in reality, it might take you like an hour to walk a couple of kilometers or miles, whatever it is. Then you go to a bike and you're going at that speed where you can actually really cover some distance over the course of a day or a couple of hours, whatever it is. But you're getting that, that endorphin rush from being in the elements and being at one with the outside and nature, which to me is like the perfect mix. Like, it's like a no-brainer. It's just a no-brainer. Yep. You can ride your bike and you gain all this experience, and also you just, it's just nice. It's as simple as that. And like ways that you can enhance and improve that is obviously better. And the fact that brands like CeramicSpeed are trying to question the normality in cycling is hugely positive. It's hugely positive. Whether that is from the oversized systems to even, ceramic bottom brackets, quite frankly, or even the standard size jockey wheels, like whatever it is changing people's perception of what the normal should be, which is incredibly positive.
Yeah, starting a conversation is a great piece of it, because I can go as simple as there's an old mountain bike race I used to do in Central Texas, and the slogan at the race, it was the Warda race, and it was run what you bro. Just be there and ride. Like, that's the essence, the starting point. But as with anything, as with individuals and with competition, then you get into, the first step is you got to get here. You got to be here and just, do it. Just show up and try it. We need to be inclusive of that. And then there's all the layers that can go on top of it, the customization, the personalization. When you think about the different kinds of hobbies and activities that are out there, and the levels that people can just get totally drawn into them. Even nowadays, drones, people flying these drones and stuff, and the prices get absurd for just a little helicopter but it's taking pictures for you. And it's not necessarily delivering a service to the average person, but when people get invested in something and really become personalized and want to enjoy it, they're taking these cool photos or seeing something they've never seen before, or riding their bike in some trail or city or wherever they've never been. You get a better emotional connection to it. And that's what it's been for me, is a life of bikes. I've just been a bike nerd, since I was a kid. I was the oldest kid, so in a family of 5, I had to look after all the bikes so the family could go do bike rides. That's how I got started in it. And that's how I started tinkering with bikes and, playing with stuff and personalizing and getting drawn into it. My sister at the other end of the chain, she was just handed a bike and had to go for a bike ride. She didn't have that same kind of emotional connection to want to go do that. Yeah. So it's, you got to get people in and feel connected to it. And if it takes customization and such to do so, then, so be it. Everyone should have the ability to do so, whatever level it is.
It's, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. As you can tell, my light has died, which is quite amusing. And I don't know if I can get it to work again. So I'm going to try. Let's try this. Oh.
Right.
I've just turned it into a disco here by the looks of it. There we go. I got a light again. No, I haven't. Oh, one more try. Let's try one more time. For anyone that's actually listening to the podcast as opposed to watching it, I'm dicking around with a light right now on my desk. It doesn't want to work, and it looks like I'm going to be blue like Chris. Anyway, if you're, it's not working. So, I mean, the next thing I wanted to ask, how big is the biggest bearing?
I mean, they get huge. I don't have a set number on the biggest size that we've done. I know the biggest bearing we've done in industry had to be moved via a forklift. It was on a pallet.
Okay, that's huge.
I believe it was poking over a meter outside diameter. I know we've had some long lead time specialty orders that used larger balls than we would ever normally supply in stock. So, I mean, the ball we use in cycling, we're talking 5 to 7 millimeters or whatnot for standard cycling bearing. Those are around a 70-day manufacturing process to the tolerances and the specifications that we use. And that's due to the heat and the pressure to build up the silicon nitride into a solid, and then the grinding and the lapping and the sanding and everything that turns it into a round sphere that is as round and sphere-like as possible. Mm-hmm. When you start compounding and getting up over a 2-inch diameter ball, I believe that's the largest we're carrying already on hand stock at the moment, you really start to push out that time to manufacture it, because it takes so much longer to get it all into that density. And that density is incredibly critical to the durability of the ball. And now when it's really hard, it takes even longer to lap and grind and turn it into a round, smooth surface, which is also important to how long the bearing lasts before the ball tries to eat the race alive. Because in a ball that's harder than a race, time will give whichever one's harder the advantage. But if you have a smooth rolling surface, you've significantly reduced the impact of one being harder than the other. The steel isn't going to smush like a loaf of bread, but without an abrasive element in there, the ball can't eat the steel. It's going to roll along the steel. So, it's kind of some of these little, misnomers that people just kind of get some thoughts on how a ceramic bearing works or lasts, or I heard the ceramic balls are way harder than the steel races. But it's like, guys, when it's a smooth interface, there's no, we're not at the static load rating of the steel by any means. So the ball rolling on the steel, it doesn't really make a difference that it's harder so long as it stays smooth and you don't throw some abrasive in there, and that's where the maintenance and cleaning comes into play. And that holds true whether it's a tiny bearing or a ginormous bearing. You build it to the conditions it's going to be in. We just launched additional bearings into another telecommunications satellite that they have to survive with zero maintenance. They have to be ultra efficient, survive 5 Gs of launch force, so you can't have a liquid grease that can splooge out when it launches, but then it has to perform in 0 G with no maintenance through the life of the satellite. So all sorts of crazy different criteria that you got to be able to figure out between the balls, the cages, the seals, and a race.
It's like scientific geekery to the max. It's just
so much fun.
Yeah, I just find it fascinating. The other thing I find with any form of ceramic object is they are the best fidget spinners in the world. I used to have an old job. I think so. I used to have an old pulley wheel. I used to sit there and I haven't got one on my desk, but I used to sit there and do this when I was thinking, because it's really satisfying. It's unbelievably satisfying. I mean,
bogarted the 3D printer one afternoon and printed a fidget spinner that was equipped with CeramicSpeed bearings. That was one of my favorite trade show toys. I thought I had it in my home drawer, but maybe it's at the office desk somewhere. Fun trinkets, especially when it's something that's that absurd. We have no business to make a CeramicSpeed fidget spinner, but when we can, they're fun.
So how I like to, I don't know if I pre-warned you about this or not, but how I always like to summarize and kind of end podcasts is I always ask people for 5 life hacks or tips. And this can be anything. So there's been like cooking tips, like bike maintenance tips, just general life tips. It could be literally anything, but 5 of them. And the reason why I say 5 is because 1's really easy, 3's pretty easy. People always struggle on the 4th one and normally insult me. And then the 5th one is kind of like something that just comes really spontaneously.
I like it. 5 definitely took some thinking, because I mean, you're right. You laid it all out. It's all true right there. And for better or worse, my 5 fits within the key categories that you mentioned. So at least I'm on track. I'm human. I have a brain and I eat food. Food, yes. Number 1. Coming from Texas, we eat lots of Tex-Mex, Mexican influenced food, that kind of stuff. So when you're getting, tacos or burrito or nachos or whatnot, very common question, do you want guacamole, you want queso on there? But it's always extra, like, I had to get guac, and they're like, it's extra. They're warning you, you're going to spend an extra 50 cents or something. Always get the guac. If you wanted it, if you thought about it, just get it. In the big scheme of things, even if it's $1 or something, and it's not a good value, it's the worst value in restaurant when they charge you extra for that. It doesn't cost that much. Just get it. It's such a small amount. You thought you wanted guac or queso. Why are you going to let 50 cents tell you no? So that's number 1.
I was talking to a mate who is in Colorado as well, and she said, and she's obsessed with tacos. It's not really a thing in London. And so I've been trying to find somewhere. I mean, there is like Mexican restaurants or Tex-Mex style restaurants, but I've been trying to find somewhere where I can buy good tacos to actually make them. So there's pretty good. Oh, I got an alarm going off here somewhere. Hang on 1 second. Right.
The kids' work tablet or school tablet, not work. My son's school tablet going off holiday week because of Thanksgiving, but normally he'd be starting a class. Yeah, the kid's back home now. That just happened this past week. It's we're not going the right direction, but we'll persevere. Stay home. Home best clear. Copenhagen actually has surprisingly good tacos. I'll give a shout out. I don't remember the name of the place. There's 2 locations. One of them is in the meatpacking district. I highly suggest anyone goes to Copenhagen, check out the meatpacking district. Some cool restaurants, bars,
it's really cool.
Food. Very cool. Very cool. And then, I love it though, because Danes eat everything with knife and fork. Burgers, pizza, everything's knife and fork. And they literally have a sign next to where you order the food at the taco place in Copenhagen that shows you, okay, you're going to pick it up, you're going to tilt your head, and you're going to eat it like that. I'm like, I've never needed directions on how to eat a taco. Like, I think before knowing how to eat a taco. But get the guac. If you want, even if it's extra, get the guac, get the queso. Always get it. It's a little thing. Now, I mean, if you're going out for every meal, then you might start to add up and have to question your choices. But always get the guac. That's number 1. That one was easy. That was the one that came to mind. Yeah. So number 2, this is one I remind myself, being a dad now and thinking of what I used to raise, how often, just how life changes. Life is long. I mean, you just don't get bogged down in the little things, but don't put off the stuff that you want to do. It's the 2 sides of it. Life's long. Don't stress you didn't get to something today. Prioritize what needs to be prioritized, but realize, our goal isn't that we have a known expiration date. So we make the most of what you have, and don't let the ability or inability to do something weigh you down more than it needs to. Address what needs to be addressed. Not telling people to be irresponsible, but just think about the opportunities. This has been a long year. I anticipate I'll be traveling to Europe again next year. We'll get back to a routine. This year's going to pass. It was a year, but it'll pass. So life is long. Just don't get bogged down in what's going on. There's always new things you might not know are coming down the road. 3, you touched on it earlier. A clean bike's a fast bike. That's the free friction tip of the day. If anyone doesn't know at this point, I think I give it to anybody. We talk about what's the first place to start on a fast bike or anything like that. But just a good clean bike's a fast bike. Less of a life hack or a tip, or just something to know that it's the easiest way to make your bike faster. Because a clean bike, you're going to ride it faster. You feel good on it. You know, you feel a little more proud if you take advantage. You know, so
completely agree with that.
Number 4, I'm going to give credit to the Danes. This one, learn how to open bottles without a bottle opener. That's one of my favorites.
Have you done it with your shoes?
Well, I mean, I can say I cheated. I had some of those sandals that had the bottle opener in the bottom, so I've done that. Wedding band, a piece of paper, another bottle, a can, a knife, keys. You know, you never know when you need to open that beer. The funny thing is, going through an airport, I was getting, I think it was a kombucha. It was a glass bottle with a pop top, and the little lady behind the counter is like, I guess they'd never sold one of these. I don't know. She didn't know where the bottle opener was, and she's like, oh no. I was like, don't worry about it. And I just kind of do one of these quick motions, use the ring, pop it off, and I full on broke the top of the glass bottle off. I was like, well, okay. She was like, oh my God, don't drink it. And I'm just like, what the hell happened? I just like, yeah, cap stayed on the glass. The glass just, flew. But learn how to open a bottle without a bottle opener, but be aware of, ripping the whole top off. Don't overdo it.
If you use Shimano road cleats, and I think Look ones work as well, but from experience, I've used Shimano and done it. You can use the back of the cleat to open a bottle.
There we go. Yeah, that's another one. I'm a speed play rider, but I bet I could get my speed plays to accomplish.
Yeah, you can definitely make it work with speed plays as well. Definitely. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll go ahead and say working for a Danish company, traveling internationally, gets credit for this last one, but always at least try local cuisine. There's a fine line. We have an office in Bangkok, Thailand now, and I talk to my colleague there, and he likes to challenge me on this. But I say, if the locals eat it and it's normal, it's staple, it's not something that's really weird, like they only eat it occasionally, then I'm like, man, at least give it a go. My palate has opened up immensely. I'm not the biggest fan of pickled herring, but I've tried a boatload of things. I've tried chicken knee. That one wasn't Danish. That was Japanese, I think. I was in the Vancouver area, got taken to a restaurant. I'm always game. Whatever somebody would normally eat, if they want to share that with me, I'm the same way. If I have friends over, I want to cook you tacos. I want to make a handmade pizza. I love cooking. The kitchen's the center of the house. I want to share the things that I like putting together and like to eat. And I always remind myself that. I mean, I was 30 before I left the country. I was very much a Texan, and Tex-Mex food is in my blood. But I make that effort. If it's a standard menu item, I'm going somewhere. I'm going to give it a try. And it's served me well through North and South America. It's served me well through Europe so far. I haven't had to back down yet. If they're eating off something that doesn't look sanitary or clean, or to that level, like maybe I don't have those enzymes to take those germs, I might throw up a question mark. But if it's at least sanitary and it's a normal dish, it's been prepared clean, then I'm in. So always try the local cuisine.
Not some kind of random, as you say, specialist thing that is made once every 5 years under the blue moon from a dead catfish that was dug out of a river 10 years ago and then fermented in a tin or something. I don't know.
Precisely. Always question the catfish that's been fermented in a tin.
So I'm with you with that one. I did the Atlas Mountain Race across Morocco this year. Yeah, well, bloody hell, it was this year, wasn't it? Start of this year. And you basically, when you should buy what you can get hold of. Conveniently in Morocco, most of the time it's a Berber omelette, which is actually really, really good. Or tagine. That's pretty much what you can get everywhere. It's tagine or Berber omelette. But I also did the Silk Road Mountain Race in Kyrgyzstan in the first year. So that's 2018, I think it's 2018. And I remember getting to a village. It was the first village I think I'd found in like 3 days. And I went into a shop and I just bought everything. And I didn't really know what any of it was. It was all really cheap. I just bought it because I was starving. And one of the things that I ended up buying was basically these lumps of cheese that were like about, size of I don't know, half the size of a golf ball or something. And they were disgusting. But I tried it. Bought it, tried it, done. And then the other thing that I remember buying, which was also very weird, was, do you know like cheesy puffs? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Cheesy puff crisps. It looked like them. Everything about it looked like it, but they were sweet. Like just like candy flossy sweet. Yeah.
Was it still cheddar flavor or was it orange?
Just sweet, just sugary. And kind of good, but really weird. But then one of the things in Kyrgyzstan is like, so the Kyrgyz people are really, really welcoming and really friendly, and they always want to like, if they want to put you up for the night or, get you breakfast or something like that. They're lovely, really, really lovely. Obviously there's massive translation issues because I can't speak Russian. Is like their instant prediction is I would speak Russian, being a white male. Definitely don't speak Russian. But Google Translate, absolute lifesaver that was. And one night I ended up staying in this family's like outhouse. And in the morning they were like, oh, would you like, basically they were like, chai, as in, do you want some tea? And I was like, yeah, I'll have a cup of tea before I set off.
Yeah.
Little did I realize that saying yes to that was a full sit down breakfast with the family, with dumplings and homemade bread and homemade honey. Like, it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. It was probably about 3 hours, but it was incredible. And I was just like, well, I might as well try everything here. Like, I don't know what half of it is, but why not? Like, I'm never going to be in this situation again. So,
yeah, I tell you, it's people, what we get on the news, what makes the bigger reaching is that, that small percentage that are, people doing amazing stuff, the massive charity outreaches, people did something very, big act of kindness. And then obviously you have the opposite end where there's, all the crime and, the horror going on in the world. But there's that massive chunk in the middle that I think often gets taken for granted. And I try to think of it often that there's a whole lot of really good people in the world. I have met some amazing people, every country I've traveled to. And I've also met some horribly shitty people here in the States. And, I try to think when we get, these ideas of what different countries are like, or, people over here are like this, that you're getting kind of the noise on top, and there's a people beyond that. And the traveling I've gotten to do, anytime I go intercontinental, I try to add, if I can, maybe just a free day or a half day somewhere, do some exploring just to see the people. And I avoid the touristy stuff, the big stuff. Like, I just want to go I've walked, probably 30 miles around Amsterdam. I get off the airport, take the train, and then I just walk. I check out the city and I see the stuff that's not in the mainstream. I had a great opportunity to do the same thing in a stay over in Iceland a few years ago. And I got myself totally lost. I, as a Texan, completely underestimated the size of Iceland. I thought I was going to drive my little rental car around the island and see Iceland before my flight. And I had all of like 6 hours. Not possible, not at all. Doesn't matter how fast you drive, you're not going to do it. So I ended up driving this rickety little rental car. And of course, I'm there in December. So it is some of the absolute shortest days of the year in Iceland. I get up right before the sun and I'm starting to drive around. I'm seeing some cool stuff. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I get to the point where I realize I'm not going to make it. And that's how stubborn I was. I thought it would be fine. And then finally I look at my map and I'm like, that's as far as I've gone. So now, okay, how do I get back across to the other side of the island where, the airport is? And I also hadn't had breakfast because I just set off like I'm going to get over somewhere and have a meal. Well, let me tell you, in December, the eastern part of Iceland, at least that I found, was highly sleepy and quiet and not open. I found on my maps what I thought was a coffee shop, little fisher village kind of thing. Not a soul around. I'm looking around and I'm just like, I'm in over my head. Like, I got to make sure I can find fuel, and then I get over to civilization so I can eat and catch my flight back home. And I finally find this place. It's starting to snow a little bit. It says it's a coffee shop. I walk up to the door, not really paying attention. It's kind of dark, thinking there's tinted windows. And as I grab the door, I notice that it says that they're closed, but the door's not locked. I just kind of instinctively grab it. And I was like, oh, very confused, like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna go back to the car. Lights start turning on inside, and I see this lady poke her head out. It was a coffee shop in the summer months when they have tourists, but there was also a glass crafts place that like locals would come, and they do glass crafting and bowls and cups and stuff. And she was there taking stuff from a kiln. She was there doing just a little bit of work, and the door was unlocked because, well, it's Iceland in December and no one's going to come by, right? So this, American comes up, starts to barges way in, and she's asking me, she's so nice. And I was like, I was just looking for a coffee, like it's no big deal, I'll keep going. She opened the place up for me, turned on the coffee maker, starts giving me these books, telling me about Iceland, offers me a little tray of some pastries that she had, makes me a coffee, refuses to charge me. And I'm just like, I was lost and you're closed. And you just like, boop, boop, flip all the lights, let's make you a coffee, let's take care of you. I got this beautiful bowl that had ash from the volcanic eruption that happened a number of years ago. She said her and her husband went out and they collected as much as they could around their property, and they've been using it, and they put it in the glass. So I had to buy something. I was like, you're not letting me leave without paying money here. So I went and I bought the bowl and a little moss syrup or something that they make there. But it was just the absolute most unbelievable experience to kind of just wander into, and then how I was treated and welcomed. And it was very heartwarming to there's great people everywhere. And I try to at least at very minimum remind myself that, remind my son, think about these things, because we hear about all the noise, we hear about the negatives that pop up. You do hear about the the really heartwarming stories, the great stories out there. But there's like that, that next 30-40% of the population that there's genuinely good people. I've had some absolutely amazing meals in people's homes in these countries that they just invited me in, and I'm like, this is way too much. Like, you guys are, I'm a total stranger. I sell bike parts, right? And they're like, no, just come join. It's all the food, and God, so much food. So yeah, there's amazing people. Always try the local cuisine. Always have an open mind, because people will surprise you when you give them the chance.
That's amazing. That's a lovely, lovely story. And on that note, I think I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for your time. I have no idea what time of day you're on.
Heading towards lunch. It's perfect.
Oh, okay. Going to get some tacos.
Maybe I will make tacos and enjoy some tacos. And honestly, I eat tacos a lot. Tacos, Mexican food, it's so easy. It's second nature. I don't have to think about it. I can season, and it's gonna be tacos for lunch.
Anything that has a magical parcel for you to hold it is good in my eyes. So, for example, pizza crust, easy to hold. Pasties, which is like a British staple. A Cornish pasty, which is all perfectly designed to be held and eaten. You've got the nice little crimple bit. It's designed to hold. Taco, same theory. But I'm gonna go to the shops and see if I can find some taco stuff and make tacos for dinner, because I've been continually told that I need to make them. So thank you for the additional nudge. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to end it here. Thank you very much.